All right, good evening, Inner Circle. Inner Circle Unite. I just realized that I had my sound all the way off, so I was asking and talking about some things. I'm not sure if you could hear me. I'm assuming you could. I just couldn't hear you because my speakers were off. So, anyhow, welcome to the call here tonight. We are going to be talking about some really fun stuff, contracts. We're going to continue on our series here. And yeah, this is a very sought after and exciting contracts explanation here, everyone's favorite subject. And I promise you, I didn't realize it was going to be this boring going in. But again, this stuff is really important. And I know that we just helped some folks write a contract today because they found a house, they got a verbal acceptance on it, and just need to get everything inked. And so spent a little bit of time today putting that together and helping them get that together, which is very timely because this is how we do business. We make offers to sellers and they accept them, and we have to get that in writing so that it is valid and enforceable, and that's what we're doing. Before I get to the boring stuff, I want to show you, and I think up on the screen you can see it, um, a house that I went through today, and it's pretty interesting on this one. Walked up. This one is actually a foreclosure, and I walked up, and here, let me show you the front of the house first. Let's see if I can get it. So I walked up to the house. Looks like a pretty nice little gingerbread house, right? Immediately you see the 4033 on this one. That's the street name. You see that uh, column there that's busted? That tells you a lot about the house right there, right? And so in any event, I walked up and there was two dogs barking like absolute crazy here. And I actually went up and knocked on the door, and I walked down to the sidewalk and just kind of waited. I had my clipboard and I was going through my notes and everything. And sure enough, I saw someone come to the window and kind of wave. I didn't know if they were shooing me off or what was the deal, but um, I waited a few more minutes and finally came to the door and opened it up and said, "Can I help you?" And it's maybe a small little case study lesson here, but anyway, I said, "Hi, my name's Nick. Is the house for sale?" And she said, "No." And it's kind of a sad story. She'd been there for 59 years. She doesn't know how she got in this mess, but she didn't know what to do. I said, "Well, it's going on sale tomorrow." So she's like, "Well, what should I do?" And I said, "There's not much you can do really tonight. I mean, if we had a couple days or a week, I could maybe tell you some things you could do to stop it or postpone it, but unless you got the money, it's probably going to happen tomorrow." She said, "Well, they didn't even notice me. They didn't give me any notice. They didn't tell anything. I just found out about it a couple days ago because someone was looking at my house and I was asking them what was going on." And I said, "Well, good news is the people that, like me, that when we buy something down at foreclosure, there's, we don't like to kick people out on the street. You're not going to get kicked out tomorrow. But if someone comes by and knocks on the door, answer it and have an open conversation with them because people would love to work something out versus, having to go through the eviction process and all that kind of stuff. So that's really good advice. Just work with that person, and it's their house now, but you have possession of it. And if you work out something, they can probably give you enough time to get out and find a new place and all that kind of stuff. So, and if I buy it, maybe I rent it back to you." He goes, "Would you do that?" I'm like, "Well, it depends. We got to look at the house and, look at the situation. And, if it works for me and it works for you, maybe we can work something out." She goes, "Well, do you want to see it?" And I said, "Well, yeah, that'd be great." So I got inside, and turns out this place is in Tower Grove South, and she sent her kids to Holy Family Parish grade school. And that's where I went, and so we kind of made an instant connection. She showed me around the house, and when I walked in, There was a lot of dog piss and fresh dog piss, and you know the smell, and there's carpet over the hardwood floors, and you can only imagine what they look like. Except for, at least she tried. She had probably 10 or so potty pads out, and they were all full of urine, and they were for the dogs. And they don't go outside because there's not a gate in the fence, so they would get out, and so she just lets them go inside the house. And my guess, looking at the condition of the home, it's probably been that way for probably 10 years. So hardwood floors are shot. Remember last week we were talking about, or a couple weeks ago in our Circle Live, we were talking about refinishing hardwood floors, and if there's stains, stain it that espresso or that coffee color. Well, that's what you'd have to do with this one. Most assuredly, those hardwood floors are going to be black. I've seen it before where I thought the actual hardwood floors were stained a dark color until you look a little closer and realize that it's just all urine. I was in one house, I don't even know where it was. It was over by Tower T, and I could not even believe how every inch of that floor was black. They had just ripped up the carpets, and I'm sure that that's what these look like. So anyway, walk through the house. Other than that, it's just dated and it's plausibly livable. It's a place to get in out of the rain. It's one of those maintenance-free homes. Hasn't had a lot of maintenance in 20 years. But walked in, and let me get back to the beginning here, and this might help you guys in some of your when you're walking through houses. This is the hot water heater. Behind it is mold for sure. To me, it doesn't look like there's water in the basement. It looks like that's moisture. Probably need to clean out the gutters, maybe do some caulking and stuff like that. And then take everything out of the basement, spray everything down with hot bleach water, scrape all that stuff off, power wash it off, whatever, and paint it with Kills and go ahead. I don't know if this is a mold remediation situation. It's just, I don't know, maybe I'd have to get some guy in there to give me a look at it. If we have any mold remediation specialists on the call, they would probably say, oh, hell no, you have to. But I'm not a mold specialist, so I'm not sure. But anyway, yeah, this is one of the cast iron stacks. I couldn't find the other one. It looks pretty bad. Down here is this used to be a finished lower level, finished basement, and it's paneling, and all the baseboards all rotted out pretty bad. Looks pretty bad. Electric panel is probably okay, but you might want to update it if you're doing it. This is an older furnace, probably 20 to 25 years old, maybe even more than that. So that might need to go. And as you can see behind the paneling is the stone walls. That generally would probably be in good condition, but doing all that stuff and putting a dehumidifier down there would probably, I've been in enough South City basements, it would probably take care of the issue. So this is upstairs. This is the fireplace, and the picture actually looks pretty good. And it was kind of weird taking photos of the house when she was standing right there, so I didn't get many inside photos. But it's kind of a cute little gingerbread house, and just needs a lot of work, and yeah, could be getting it back to its former beauty and former glory and having it look pretty nice. So let's see, is the photos catching up with where I'm at? Because I wanted to show you something else. So I had the next door neighbor when I was trying to take this picture. Next door neighbor came up and said, "Can I help you, sir?" And just by the tone, I'm like, "Ooh, yeah, this is going to be a pleasant conversation." And I'm like, "Oh, I'm just looking at the house." He goes, "Well, why are you fucking doing it on my property?" I'm like, sir, I mean no harm. I was just trying to take a look at this side of the house. He goes, well, we had people all up and down the street all day, and they're in these silver F-150s just like yours, and blah 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 blah, and why are you trespassing on my property and all this kind of stuff. Started cussing and everything. I'm like, sir, I apologize. I was just trying to take a look at the house. I'll be on my way. And so I was on my way. I went to the other side of the house to take pictures and look at it. And then his mom came out. And his mom could not have been any nicer and profusely apologized. I told her the situation, what I was trying to do. And she goes, people in life just need to be nice to each other. I'm like, yeah, I know. She goes, and I'm not preaching to you. I was just kind of apologizing for my son. I'm like, wow, thanks. I just apologized and walked away. I was, it's not my business, but, thank you for being nice. And so she actually opened up the gate and said, if you'd like to come on inside and take a look at it. I said, nah, I'll just take a photo. And she was real nice. And we talked about the neighborhood, the block, got some inside scoop on, there was some problem houses that are now being renovated. So that's kind of cool, all that kind of stuff. So anyway, yeah, this is over on Phillips. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to let's see if I can bring this up here. I'm going to really quickly comp this guy out. I've already got the comps up. And how come I can't do what I want to do here with this silly program? All right, so I got the comps up. I ran the comps here. This is an interesting one because if you look at, and this is why you really got to know the city. All right, so let's look at let's look at this one, 4152 Miami. Looks pretty similar to ours. Ours actually looks a little bit bigger, right? Sold for 175 in one day. About the same square footage. I think it's slightly bigger, but 175, that's the deal, right? That could be our house, except for this house feels bigger than my house does. I'm going to tell you that right now. And unfortunately, I don't have inside photos, so I can't really show you. But this one definitely is a bigger feeling house. Maybe the square footage is wrong in the tax records, but it just does not feel this big. It's definitely a smaller house. So what is that? 10,000 off, 15,000 off, I mean, it still could be really nice, right? But I don't know. Let's go to the next one here. This one, another 175. Boy, there's two right in a row. This house got to be worth 175, right? And this house is probably even about the same size as ours. I used to know someone that lived right next door to this house, by the way. I used to go over there all the time, hang out in the backyard. This one is, again, a little, ours is still just a little smaller than theirs, feeling-wise. Maybe square footage-wise it's the same, but ours just feels smaller when you go in. I was a little claustrophobic. And maybe it had something to do with the urine smell, for sure. But you start looking at this and you're like, man, 175, 184, there's some really strong comps here, right? But let's see. Then this one, oh my gosh, 145. This one sold for 145 in 4 days. Same square footage as ours, pretty much. I mean, this one was, they took down walls and did all kinds of cool stuff and made it look really nice. Really modern, open floor plan. Again, ours is not. But you're thinking, holy smokes, man, that's, this is the comp, right? So let's get back to, and then 142 on Thelozin, 139, and ours is going to look better than this, right? This is probably the best comp, and I'm going to tell you why. This is the whole reason why I wanted to comp this out. So remember, 3652 Roger. Let's go to the map here, because This area is block by block. I promise we'll get the contracts, but this is probably a little bit more interesting. This area is definitely block by block. Let me zoom out just a little bit, and I'm going to show you Tower Grove South. Okay, this is Tower Grove South, and the closer you get to Gravois here, the more it becomes like block by block by block by block. Okay, now the good streets here are going to be back here, and the closer you get to Gravois, when these streets go like Winnebago and Beck and Phillips, they all kind of go like this. I did a house on Winnebago last year and a half ago or whatever, and we bought it from a bank, put money into it, and if it hadn't been for the damn roof that needed to be, we thought we could just get by with hot mopping it, but we had to replace it. That kind of ate our budget, and we didn't make that much money on it. We did okay, but we didn't. It wasn't a big case study. Hey, we made $35,000 on this house. This is how we did it. It was a lower dollar amount. However, still proud of the property. We did pretty good on it. So yeah, two streets. Yeah, was it two streets or yeah, two streets over? So ours is on Phillips, and after you get past these 3 blocks, it starts to become better. And the closer you get up here, these are really nice houses. These are 175 houses. This is Phillips. Ours is basically where's our subject property is right here, and this block is better than our block of Winnebago. I think our house was like right here. Yeah, we sold. This was. I think this is the one that we did. Maybe not. I don't know. Uh, ours is one of these. I don't know. Sorry, but I just wasn't too jazzed about the house that we did. I mean, we didn't make a lot of money on it, and so it was the block. The block was just not as good as these other blocks, and it wasn't going to command a higher price. And this block is not a 175 block. It's just not. But it's probably a 140, maybe 150 block. And who knows if you put it out there and we continue this trend of having nothing on the market. Maybe you do all your numbers to say that it sells for 140, and if you luck out and a bunch of people bid it up, and maybe you sell for 150, 160. Who knows? That's not out of the realm of possibility for sure. But I would probably be safe and put my numbers on that. So in any event, this property is kind of cool. Nice to get all the intel and figure out what's going on with it. And yeah, I think that this could be a pretty good one for somebody. Just gonna need to hold your breath if you go inside, because holy smokes, that knock you over. Tearing up. My clothes still smell like it. I need to take a shower when I get home. So, all right, let's get to contracts. That was just on my mind, and I had that up, so I wanted to talk about that house. Does anyone remember where we left off? If so, please let me know. Oh, and before I get to that, sorry. Next Thursday is our May monthly case studies and speaker series night with the Southside Investment Club. I think that's going to be a real good one. We got a pretty good panel. And then obviously next weekend is our wonderful 3-day summit, Success Summit, and I'm really excited for that. That's going to be a lot of fun. Always like to meet new folks and talk real estate. You guys I think a couple of you guys are registered to come to that, so make sure you come on out, even if just for half a day or something, just to kind of get your motivation back up or learn something new, or come the whole freaking 3 days. Unless you're out buying 100 homes a year, guys, you probably should be coming. Kudos to Vic. I'm not sure if he's on the call, but he just sold that house today that he had under contract, and he sent me a little video here, and he probably wants me to show it. So let me see if I can find it. All right, the video should be playing. This is the kitchen that he just put in. And man, he did a good job. You can't even recognize the house. And this was one that we were on a case study, or we went on a field trip on, where I think I had a kidney stone. I couldn't be there. And Vic just did it, or Craig did it, or someone covered for me. I don't know. But kitchen turned out awesome, man. Turned out really cool. So, and I think the Cords just bought a house today as well. So good for them. They found a nice little deal where they can make a couple bucks and get their feet wet. So good for the Cords. Okay, so does anyone remember where I left off here? Anybody? Does anyone remember at all? Is anyone ever paying attention to these stupid things when I'm talking about contracts and how fun they are? If not, I'm going to start all the way from the beginning. See, we can have fun with this stuff, huh? All right, someone's writing in section 13. Sounds good. I got that up. Let's go. Okay. All right. So again, disclosures here. Not an attorney. You should seek legal advice when you do not understand something. Craig and I have a very, very good cursory knowledge of how this stuff all works, and you should through this have been able to understand at least how things are working here. What's funny is even though we've been going through this, I figured out that we need to do something after this, which is how you actually use this contract to actually close it up. I'm gonna pick on the Cords here for a little bit, but Maria signed it and then she sent it over to her lender to get it thing processed, and she said, okay, everything's all set, get that sent over to the lender. And I said, well, did the seller sign it? She goes, oh, I didn't know he needed to. She's so cute. But now she's getting the signature, so then she can take that to the lender and then submit that to the title clerk. So we're going to talk about that process after we get it under contract, maybe in another webinar where the processes of that. But going through this again, I know it's maybe slightly painful, and I'm going to stop saying it's so painful. We need to eat the frog. If it's the worst thing that we're going to do all day, we need to get it done because you have to know this stuff. Okay, if we're going to be doing real estate the way that we're doing it, we have to know this stuff. We're going to be making a lot of offers, and there's going to be oopsies from time to time, and we need to know how to navigate all this stuff and reduce the amount of risk and liability that we have, and increase the amount of knowledge that we have so that we can not have those situations come up, which is great that we are starting at section 13 because this is what that talks about. If either party defaults in the performance of any obligation in this contract, party claiming a default shall notify the other party in writing of the nature of the default and his election of the remedy. What this is saying is before things come to blows and we hire a big bad attorney, let's talk it out and try to work out a solution before going and hiring attorneys, okay? And so this is a clause in the contract that the St. Louis Association of Realtors board puts in here so people can understand that, hey, we're entering this in good faith, that we're not going to take AK-47s and come to your house and destroy your property or you because you defaulted on the contract. There might be a reason. Maybe you got in a car accident. Maybe your mom just passed away. Maybe, fill in the blank. But let's talk about what the issues are. Try to work out a solution that works for everybody. And if it, then if we just are in an impasse and we can't come to an agreement, somebody has exposure and liability out there, so probably going to get sued. Okay, so that's what that talks about. The Foreign Investment in Real Property Tax Act. This is for foreign corporations that own properties or that is buying properties, and you need to provide the correct documentation. let's don't go any further into that. Construction. When I first got into the business, I thought that talked about the construction of the house. I never actually read it, but it talks about when the term broker is used, what that means. When basically terminology and terms is defining the words and phrases in this contract. So it's not that that's definitely a legalese portion of the contract. However, we're going to move on. Floodplain. This is interesting because I'll get this question a lot. Hey, what happens if the property's in a floodplain? Well, if you know about it going in, that's one thing, and that probably means you're getting a pretty good deal. Okay. And yes, you can buy properties in a floodplain and make money, but my gosh, you just really have to look at all the numbers a lot closer because properties do sell in the floodplain. And there are homes in the floodplain in St. Louis. Floodplain insurance or flood insurance is issued, and it's more expensive to own the property, but that means you're probably not going to sell it for as much as you would for that same property a couple streets over that's not in the floodplain. So you just have to really make sure that you're comping out other properties in the floodplain and vice versa. Okay, but if you didn't know that it was in a floodplain, buyer can terminate this contract if any portion of the property is located in a designated 100-year floodplain, and again, unless disclosed to buyer in writing prior to contract. Okay, so that's really good. If you do not waive your, or if you do not terminate within 10 days of actual knowledge, then you have waived that contingency. So you just, if you find out about it and it is an issue and it's going to mess up your numbers, you can terminate the contract. Make sure you do it in a timely fashion. 17, access, final walkthrough, and utilities. We want the seller to allow us to have access to the property for our inspections. We want to have utilities turned on so that we can perform those inspections. We have access to the house today. You don't just go under contract and then you can't go back into the house. That's not part of the rules. You definitely have access to reasonable advance notice. The seller, listing broker, seller agrees to provide access for appraisals. Other professionals may be provided. In the contract requires buyer's lender or insurer for inspections, for all that kind of stuff. And we have the right to have utilities turned or transferred at buyer's expense within 4 days prior to closing. And during the final walkthrough, which I would strongly recommend you guys do, you want to have a final walkthrough before you actually go close on the property and give them money. Okay. This is probably still a little bit more for retail properties, like if you're buying a primary residence. But even still, it's good to go over there because you might have negotiated for them to get all of their stuff out, even though we typically buy stuff with all the possessions still in the house. Maybe on this particular one, they said they were going to get everything out and broom swept, and that's why we were going to buy it at the price that we decided on. And if we go over there and they didn't get anything out, well, then we could go to them and say, hey, listen, we'll still close on it, but we need a couple bucks off because it's going to cost us $1,500 to get guys over there to take all this stuff out, right? And if we didn't go do a final walkthrough and we closed on it and 2 days later we show up at the house, well, good luck trying to get any money, right? Maybe they were supposed to fix something, or they were supposed to leave something behind, like they were supposed to leave the appliances, even though you might be renovating the kitchen and getting new appliances. Maybe you were going to put those appliances in one of your rentals. Whatever it is, you want to walk through and make sure that the house is in the same general condition, that everything has been satisfied per the terms of the contract. So if repairs were supposed to be made and they weren't, technically they could hold up the closing. If they didn't get stuff out, or if they left a bunch of stuff, or if they took everything and you were thinking that they were going to leave it, you want to deal with that. And maybe the most important, make sure the house hasn't burned down, right? Or it hasn't been vandalized, or because we buy a lot of vacant houses, right? Make sure that all the plumbing is still intact. Make sure the furnace and AC hasn't been stolen. I mean, that kind of stuff. You wanna catch that stuff before you close on it, because afterwards, good luck. You know, you have access, final walkthrough, and utilities for all kinds of stuff, and take advantage of that for sure. Okay, that stuff does happen, so it's you want to take advantage of that. Special agreements. I'm going to skip over this just for a second because you know what? I'm going to go ahead and tackle this now. But I have to get this up here, so give me a second. Special agreements. This is what I have developed and what you guys have access to from Inner Circle's website is the special agreements when buying and selling a house in various different scenarios. Okay. You're probably not going to be used to this format because I haven't written out on a Word document, but this was just the easiest thing to pull up because I had this screen up and this is where I house these. But basically, this is these are the clauses that I use because in this particular section. And remember, we're talking about the special agreement section on section 18. So let me pull this up here. Okay, so again, kind of going with our theme here of talking about the contract in almost every possible scenario, rather than going through just as a buyer, going through just as a seller, how to fill that out. Maybe that'd be helpful, and we do that a lot quicker in another training. But these are the most common things that I do when I buy a property or sell a property, and so these are the clauses that I have. So let's say that we're buying a listed property first. Okay, so I'll pull this up. And I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see it. Let me see if it's big enough here. You should be able to see this. So I'll read it off. Property is being sold as is with the seller to do no repairs or provide inspections. Seller agrees to allow buyer the right to inspect, tour, or view subject property prior to close upon seller's acceptance contract. Buyer shall have 15 business days from the date of this contract acceptance and access to property provided to buyer to perform inspections. Buyer to find inspections satisfactory in buyer's sole judgment. If buyer does not find property satisfactory, this contract shall be null and void, and all earnest money shall be returned to the buyer. It's pretty, that's my due diligence period, okay? Now, maybe they will only allow 5 business days, okay? Because 15 business days is 3 weeks, right? And 15 days sounds, it's 2 weeks, but it's really 3 weeks when you count business days. And if it's a listed property, I don't have to worry about access because it's more than likely on a Supra or the realtor has it on a lockbox, and there should be easy access to it. So I don't have that language in here. I make it clear that it's as is. Seller to do no repairs or provide inspections. We want to have access to view it. We want 15 business days, and I won't typically put an inspection notice on, or an inspection rider on the contract, which I'll get to where that would go later. Maybe we'll get to it tonight if we get far enough along. But the contract that we're going over has a rider. It's a separate piece of paper that talks specifically about inspections and how that works. And we sometimes use that and sometimes we don't. And if we don't use it, we're going to still have a due diligence period and it's going to be addressed here. Okay. For instance, the one that we're working on today, we did not use an inspection rider. What we did is we handled that, our due diligence period in the special agreements section. Okay. So again, you guys have access to these on Inner Circle's website, but this is where they would go if you were to use that. So that's when buying a listed property. Let's say when we're buying a property from a for sale by owner person, okay? It's kind of the same language, except for we want to make sure we have access to it. And I'm waiting for the screen to catch up here because it's lagging a little bit. There we go. All right, so property is being sold as is with seller to do no repairs or provide inspections. Seller agrees to allow buyer the right to inspect, tour, or view subject property prior to close upon seller's acceptance of this contract. Seller shall allow buyer to place a lockbox at the property for this purpose. That's where we're addressing how we're going to get in. Buyer shall have 15 business days from the date of contract acceptance and keys being provided to the buyer to perform inspections. Buyer to find inspection satisfactory in buyer's sole judgment. If buyer does not find property satisfactory, this contract shall be null and void, and earnest money shall be returned to buyer. Lines 282 through 309 do not apply. Nicholas Bauer, manager of Real Estate Rehab LLC, is a licensed real estate agent in Missouri. I should probably have that in the listed property one too, but I'll explain why I don't later. So yeah, that's pretty straightforward. It's basically the same as if I'm buying a listed property, except for the for sale by owner properties probably don't have a lockbox on there or easy access to it. So I want to address that I'm getting that access, and we have 15 business days from the date of the contract and keys being provided to buyer, because I might not get the keys for 3 or 4 days before or 3 or 4 days after we go under contract. Like if they're going to put them in the mail, or they're going to come out to my office to give me the keys, or I'm going to put a lockbox on, then a couple days later they get a copy of their keys and put it in a lockbox. You know, it might take a couple days, so that would eat into our due diligence period. So that's kind of why we have it written like that. I have on there that lines 282 through 309 do not apply, and I'll explain why right here. I'll wait for the screen to catch up for a second. And it's almost caught up. There we go. 282 to 309 talks about relationships and disclosures for who's doing what. And since we're not using any agents whatsoever, and no one's using a licensed agent to represent them in the transaction, we just say that this is basically stricken from the contract, and these lines do not apply. Okay. All right, so that is when buying a listed property and when buying a property from for sale by owner. And from a for sale by owner could be from another wholesaler as well, right? Now, when we're selling a property, this is what the clauses that we would like to see. So this is what we want to do. This is our as is and whereas clause. Property is being sold as is and whereas with seller to do no repairs, provide inspections, or make any guarantees or warranties as the condition of the property. Sales contingent upon seller successfully acquiring the property prior to closing date of this contract. This is a big deal because when I buy a piece of property, if I put something under contract and then I am going to turn around and sell it to another investor, and I let's see, if I say something happens with the seller and they skip town and they don't show up to close, and I'm supposed to sell this property to this other investor, well, I can't because I didn't bought it yet. And so what I've done is kind of safeguarded myself here in case this seller does something happen to him. I don't have exposure and liability because I'm supposed to fulfill this contract that I have, but I can't because I haven't bought the house. So the sale is contingent upon the seller successfully acquiring the property prior to the closing date of this contract. If I already own the property, I just won't put that particular thing in, because frequently I'll buy properties and just close on it and then I'll find the buyer later. And so I won't necessarily have that language in there because I only own it. It's irrelevant. But that's when selling a property in a wholesale transaction, as is clause, that's what I'll do. I'll use that. And I'll also check on this one. Buyer has the right to inspect the property within 5 days for informational purposes only. If buyer finds an inspection report unsatisfactory, buyer may terminate the contract and earnest money will go to the seller. So I've got that very clear that earnest money is non-refundable. That's how I like to sell properties in a wholesale transaction. And I think I was talking about this recently with you guys, but I'll explain it again. A few months ago at an SSIC event, a guy was challenging me on this, and he was saying, "How do you sell your properties if the earnest money is non-refundable, and if they do an inspection that they can terminate it, but they're not going to get their earnest money back?" I'm like, well, typically the people that we sell to buy from us a lot, or we're working with them on a one-on-one basis, or they do all their due diligence up front and they've got their bids already, and then they make us an offer and they know exactly what they're playing with because they know our terms, and they know that if they do all this stuff beforehand, they're going to buy the property, and we know that they're going to buy the property, right? So if they go through and, if someone's bought 30, 40, 50 homes before, and they walk into one of our houses, they pretty much know what the game is, right? They know that, hey, it's going to cost X amount to fix up. They got to do this, this, and this. The houses that we buy are pretty ugly houses. They need lots of work. So if you're going to try to terminate the contract because a light switch isn't working, come on, man, you're going to replace all the light switches anyway. You can terminate the contract, but I'm going to keep the earnest money, right? You just wasted my time. So that's why we do it that way, and it works out because people are serious when they make us an offer, and they know what's going on. If it's a big issue for somebody, could we waiver on that? Well, potentially. Maybe we ask for, it's a negotiation point. Maybe we ask for a couple more bucks, or maybe a larger earnest money deposit, or a concession on something else. But for the most part, this is kind of why we do it that way, so that we only have serious people that are making offers, and it's good for everybody involved. We know what's going on, and it just keeps everyone honest and upfront, ready to go. So those are the clauses that I'll use. And let's see so I will put those two clauses in there when I'm selling a property in a wholesale transaction. And depending upon whether or not I already own the property or not, is whether or not I'll put that sale is contingent upon a seller successfully acquiring the property prior to the closing date of this contract. So those right there can be modified, and you can, come up with any other special agreements as well. If it rains on Tuesday, you get $500 off the house. Seller agrees to leave all the stained glass windows, or what are some of the more common things? I don't know. You could come up with anything here. It's just special agreements. If there's, maybe, okay, here's one. Maybe there's a pencil sharpener in the basement that their grandfather installed it, and it's been sitting there. No one's used a pencil in 50 years, but that's really important to them. And for whatever reason, they want to make sure that they can take the pencil sharpener from the basement, and they want to put that in the new house. Okay. Sure. Absolutely. I don't care about that. But if it's that important to you, let's just go ahead and put it in the special agreement so that you know that you're protected. Maybe that would make them feel warm and fuzzy or something. I don't know. Things like that could go right here. And this is the time to put that in there. Any special agreements that are going to be a part of that. Yeah. So right underneath there is the special sale inspection writer. This is where that would go. And you know what? Let me just, since we're here, let me go ahead and pull that up really quick. Let's search for it. Inspection. Let's see if this is it. Yeah, special sale inspection writer. So in the residential sales contract, this language is already in here, so they don't have to put that. But for the special sales contract, if you would like to still have an inspection clearly laid out, they have a special rider that you can attach to it. And I'm not going to go, well, it'll basically say the same thing. It basically says the same thing as the other one. And since we're not going through the other one, maybe I should go through it. But basically, it says the seller is going to arrange to have the utilities turned on, and within 10 days, if none stated after the acceptance deadline date, the buyer may purchase one or more written home inspection reports from independent qualified inspectors. And one of three things can happen. One, the buyer is satisfied with the inspections. We're all good. We're set to close. Number two, buyer is terminating the contract. Uh-oh, we found something big, with earnest money returned to the buyer. Or number three, buyer is willing to still close upon satisfaction of the requirements set forth in the inspection notice, which we're going to send over right now. We want the furnace fixed, the roof replaced, and all new windows in the house. Whatever we found in the inspection report, we would like to have those items taken care of, or a portion of those items taken care of. So one of those three things could happen. We could still close on the property, or we're going to terminate the contract, or we're still willing to close, but we need these particular issues addressed that we didn't see when we first looked at the house. Okay. So that basically kind of like lays out this. It does the same thing as our clauses do, which is our due diligence period in those clauses, the 15 business days. This just says 10 days. You can write in any days that you want. But basically, it clearly lays out what's going on with it, and you can use that if you'd like when you're working with one of your realtor buddies to help you write offers. You certainly can do that. There's also a short sale rider, just in case you're going after a short sale. It talks about the different things that could happen with a short sale, when earnest money is supposed to be delivered, when your inspections are going to be handled, and all that kind of stuff. And then if there's any other rider, like if you're buying a rental property, well, there's a rental property form that the seller can fill out that will tell you how much the deposits are, how much the rents are, how much the expenses are, and all that kind of stuff. And you can ask for that information, and they can provide that to you. If it's a condo, you want to take a look at the condominium association's requirements or restrictions, indentures. A neighborhood association, if you want to take a look at those. My one and only experience to a neighborhood association is the one that I currently live in. And yeah, if I were to ever live in another neighborhood that has an association dues again, I would definitely want to see a copy of those before I move in, so I can know what I can and cannot do to my property. Yeah, so that's kind of.
Yeah, he does that a lot too. Yes.
We got some background noise. If you guys want to mute yourself, because it looks like it's someone who's calling in. So if you want to mute yourself, that'd be great. Thanks. So yeah, those are the special agreements. I think we can move on. Let's tackle two more, and then we'll call it a night. So 19, square footage and lot size disclosure. This is saying that the broker is not an expert in measuring and does not measure total square footage or lot size of the property. If the seller has suggested that it's 2,500 square feet, and after you've run the appraisal it's only 1,200 square feet, well, that could maybe mess up your ARV, right? So this is yeah, if you wish to have a verifiable and accurate information on lot size, you should retain a licensed surveyor. You should just, this is kind of like a cover your ass letter for the broker, because we, as a real estate agent, if we're marketing someone's house, we're putting the information out there, and we're putting a lot of third-party information out there. And if that's wrong, saying not to sue the broker. However, if there is a major difference in what you thought the square footage was, then you can certainly raise that issue up with the seller. Last one here for tonight is seller's disclosure statement. So in Missouri, a seller's disclosure statement isn't required. But there's one of three things that could happen. Most commonly, what we'll do with as-is properties is we'll check no seller's disclosure statement is prepared. On a listed like if we buy a house and we fix it up and we sell it retail, sometimes we will do a seller's disclosure statement, and sometimes we won't. And I don't know if I really have a rhyme or reason for that. However, it just take that for what it's worth. Sometimes we do and sometimes we don't. I would like to not have any seller's disclosure statements at all, because that will limit the amount of liability potentially and risk and exposure that we might have if something goes down after we sell it. Okay. Not that a lot of stuff happens, but I'll do no seller's disclosure statement as provided by the seller. And that's because I just don't want to fill it out. It's a lot. It probably only takes 15, 20, 30 minutes to do it, but you know me in paperwork, we don't get along. So that's generally why I'll have no seller's disclosure statement is available. And if I'm selling it in a wholesale transaction, guys, I've never owned the property. I've been in the property once. I don't really know anything about it. So that's why I'll do no seller's disclosure statement is provided by the seller. You could do one of three things. That one, which we just said, or buyer confirms that before signing this offer to purchase, we've read a copy of the seller's disclosure statement. So the seller prepared one in advance. We took a look at it. We're going to sign off on it. We've confirmed that we've already seen it. All right. Or seller agrees to provide buyer with a seller's disclosure statement within 1 day after the acceptance deadline date, and then the buyer shall have 3 days after the acceptance deadline date to review said statements and declare in writing that the contract is terminated, earnest money be returned to the buyer, subject to paragraph 12. Otherwise, this contingency shall be deemed as waived by buyer. So one of three things could happen. No seller's disclosure statement, you read it beforehand, or the seller didn't prepare one yet, but he will, and you have a chance, you have a couple days to take a look. All right, so the next time we talk, we should be rounding this out, which is pretty cool. We can get over to the other contract set that is available to Inner Circle members. And do we have any questions? Let me see. I don't think I saw the chat box go off. Any questions, guys? Okay. So we will pick back up at item number 21, and we should go pretty quick on that for sure. Yeah, the sooner we get through this, the sooner we can have a poker night at the office, and I'm pretty excited for that. That could be lots and lots and lots of fun. So yeah, if we don't have any other questions, I'm going to call it here. Questions, comments, or concerns, just let us know. We're here to help. If you need to schedule a coaching call, please do so. Log into the website and click to get on my schedule. And congratulations to all the people that are out there moving and shaking. I've been seriously, in the last week or two, seems like I'm getting daily calls like, hey, Nick, I've got this property, or what do you think about this? Or I just put this under contract, or whatever the case may be. So that's awesome. It's a lot of good activity. Keep it up. And yeah, Nick signing off. We'll see you at the top or from the top. Talk to you soon, guys.